Hi guys, welcome back to my channel and welcome to another ranking video. Today we are ranking Mcgrath Mothership Palettes. Today I'm only ranking the Mothership Palettes and not the quartz or the 6-pan ones. This will be the 10-pan Mothership Palettes and I have 8 in total. So coming in at number 8 is the Divine Rose 1 palette. This palette to me is the most boring palette ever. I am well aware that this palette is the favorite of many people, but for me it's does not even come close. This is a perfect everyday palette, but I did not purchase from McGrath to buy an everyday palette. If I wanted to buy an everyday palette, or I want an everyday palette, then I would buy it from an everyday brand. To me, I consider McGrath palettes to be power, you know, when you want to make a statement, you know, when you want to do a look that will make you stand out. You know, that is what our palettes are meant for, and I mean that in terms of use, in terms of color, in terms of everything really, in terms of formula. That is what our palette is all about. So to use this on my eye, especially for my skin tone, it just does not do anything called power at all. There's no power when it comes to this palette for me. I mean, the only saving grace for this palette is these 4 shades here, but as far as the others are concerned, they just, on my eyes, they just look very plain and meh. It's just no, it's not it at all. And if I just swatch the special shade in this palette for you, so this is the special shade. This is the only shade actually that made me buy this palette, if I'm being honest, is that shade, and it's a multi-chrome. Don't know if you can see the shift. It's beautiful. I mean, the shade is beautiful, but when you think of using it with these other colors, it just does not stand out. I mean, using it with a different color from a different palette, fine, but with the amount, you know, you pay for this palette, I really don't want to bring another palette unless I choose to. I want to be able to use the whole palette for my experience if I wanted, and that's why it's coming in at number 8 for me. In my number 7 spot is the Subliminal Palette, and this is what Subliminal Palette looks like. This is the last of the Mothership I actually bought. It took me a long time to buy this palette, and the reason is because it's a cool toned palette. I mean, if you've been on this channel for a while, you know I get intimidated with cool tone palettes. So for me, I really did not want to get this palette. But what really sold me is the 4 special shades. Oh my. If I was ranking all these palettes on the special shades, this would have been in my top 3. But you've got to consider every shade when you're buying a 10-pan palette for that price. Everything has got to count. And for me, because it's just cool, so cool tone, I mean, that brown, it would hardly show on my skin, and if I use that, I mean, it's just brown, black, and that's it. I mean, and those 4 colors are the only things, you know, that makes the look stand out. So for me, it just didn't speak to me, and the only reason I finally gave in is those 4 special shades, because they are truly special. But this shade, this blue shade, is what sold me. Beautiful that is. Honestly, it's such a gorgeous blue shade. It's the best blue shimmer I have ever swatched or used. It's absolutely beautiful. And because I like to do my makeup first before I do my eyes, I really appreciate shades that don't fall on my eyes. And with this, wetting it and using a glue, no fallout, and I cannot ask for more. I mean, how do you get such a beautiful shade like this and it doesn't, and there are no fallouts? Absolutely beautiful, and that's why Subliminal is number 2 for me. In 6th place is the Sublime Palette, and this is the Sublime Palette. So the special shade or the show-stopping shade in this palette is the emerald green, and it's beautiful. This is the palette I have on my eyes, so I used that green and that purple, and I used a little bit of that for my inner corner. And if I swatch those shades for you so you can see what I've got on my eyes, so that is the green, which is called emerald green, and that is the golden shade, and this is the, I don't know what it's, I think it's a cross between purple and pink, this one. And those are the 3 colors I have on my eyes today. How beautiful and gorgeous they are. And again, as always, I did my makeup before I did my eyes, and I had no fallout. Any specks that came, I was able to sweep away with my brush. Absolutely beautiful. Look at that. A quick tip when you're trying to pick up the special shades, I don't know whether you need it or not, whatever, but I usually put my finger on a wet wipe, and once you touch your finger to the wet wipe, it makes it so easy to pick up the shades. So like if you look at that shade, it's so glittery, but because my hands are wet, so when you pick it up, it kind of sticks to your finger as opposed to falling over. So there it is. And when you now swatch it either on your eyes or anywhere, it makes it wet looking and it's easier to adhere onto your skin. So that is my trick when I'm using any of these shades. I make sure that my finger is slightly damp and I pick up the shade, and it's so easy then to use on top of a glue or on top of a glitter primer, if you like. Number 6, Sublime Palette. Coming in at number 5 for me in the Mothership palette is the Midnight Sun palette, and this is the Midnight Sun palette. What attracts me to the Mothership palette are the 4 shades, and is mainly that shade. All the shades that stand in here. So for example, the bronze palette, you have the red. For the Divine Rose 2, you have that special trichome shade. And for this palette, this is the main attraction of this palette. So being purple, I should never have bought this palette at all. But what saves this palette, or what makes it so interesting, is the matte shades in this palette. I love the matte shades in this palette, especially that warm orangey kind of shade. I think it's a toss between orange and red. So if I swatch that for you, let me make sure that my finger is not wet. So this is the shade. I love warm tones, and look how yummy this matte is. How beautiful. So this matte is what sold me on this palette, not even the shimmers. This matte is what sold me. I absolutely love the tone of this matte. I mean, as well as the orange, I also love the other dark, the darkest matte in this palette. And if I swatch that for you as well, so I appreciate the fact that it's not brown and it's not black. It's actually like a toss between. It's like a very, very deep chocolate. So it's a toss between the brown shade she puts in the palette and the black. And this is why this palette is ranking higher than all the other ones I've shown you. The matte and this green are really the shades I use in this palette. So this sweet, dark, dusky green is so beautiful. If I swatch that for you, look how gorgeous that is. It's like a moss green. These shades are the shades that really attract me to this palette, not the Violet Orchid, which is a special shade at all, in fact, which is a strange one. But these shades I really love in this palette, and that's why it's really ranking in at number 5 for me. A combination I like to do is put this coppery special shade over that brown matte I swatched earlier, and I'll show you. So that's that brown shade. So if you swatch this over that, look at that perfect combination. Look how perfect that is. So this is why I love this palette, and this is why it's coming in at number 5 for me. Coming in at number 4 for me is the Decadence palette. Oh, this palette is beautiful, and it also smells delicious. I don't know if you've ever smelled your palette, but mine smells delicious. It smells like vanilla even, which makes it so much better. This palette is beautiful. It's a beautiful formulation of shimmer shades. So nice, so glorious, so yummy. All of the shades are absolutely perfect. I mean, there is no shade in this palette that I do not love. I love every single shade in this palette, even the supposedly cool toned one. This one, that one, even that one. I love all these shades. It's just, for me, it's a perfect combination of the mattes you use that make this palette stand out. I mean, it's all shimmers. So if you're the type that likes matte in your palette, then you wouldn't like this. I usually combine McGrath palettes with other matte shades. Mostly I like to use it with my Viseart palette. It's a perfect combination. I mean, one shade here with a matte, you are out of the house. Or 2 shades here, you know, a pop of color in here and a matte, you're done. It's so beautiful. It's not a shimmer that you stand there waiting for it to show up on your face. No, it's literally you swipe your hands and the payoff is there. And if I swipe one of my, actually two of my favorite shades in here for you, so it's the golden one and the wine color one. So this is the wine shade. Oh, look how beautiful that shade is. This is why I don't mind that she repeated in one of our recent quote. I really don't mind. I love this shade. This shade is called Blue Blood. Oh, so beautiful. Look how gorgeous that is. That all over the lid, that in the inner corner. Oh, sweet, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful palette. I love it so much. So ranking at number 4 is the Decadence palette for me. If you've been watching one or two of my videos, then you'll probably be able to guess the rest of the 3 palettes, which position they come in at. So coming in at number 3 for me is Divine Rose 2. I don't like pinks at all. I can tolerate pinks, but it wouldn't be the first color I pick out when it comes to a palette or it comes to clothes. Not really. I just tolerate it. But this palette is absolutely beautiful, and I did my best not to buy this palette. Try to dupe it, try to find, you know, a replacement for this special shade, which I did find something very close, but I eventually gave in and bought the palette. For me, this palette is not just about the special shades, it's about the combination of the 10 shades in this palette. I think it was gorgeously done. It was well thought of. They go with each other. Every shade has a meaning. Every 2 shades you can combine. It's so beautiful. None of them is out of place. You can use them with each other. You can use them with other palettes. It's such a beautiful and well thought of palette for me, and that is why it's coming in at number 3. Not to even consider the special shades here. Look at that. Yes, we know indie brands have done multi-chromes, they've done dual-chromes and all sorts, but which of those brands do multi-chrome like this that does not shake, it does not give, it's not powdery, it does not give you, you know, it's not messy. Look at that. I mean, I have indie brands. By the time you're doing this, it's all over my hand. There's specks flying. Look at this. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It's so smooth. It's gorgeous. I love this shade. I mean, another thing I like about this palette is the combination of the mattes as well. All the mattes in this palette, they are beautiful. And this shade, oh, because I love red. I love, look at that. It's a variation, it's a wine shade, and it's such a beautiful color. If I just show you what that wine looks like, and let me put this special shade on top of that. Look how beautiful that is. The thing that frustrates me with Pam McGrath palettes is the fact that there ain't any colorful mattes. I mean, I know, yeah, it's runway, it's supposed to be like specialized makeup and stuff like that, but I would love some colorful mattes. Please, just come out with colorful mattes. I'm sure everybody else wants colorful mattes, because every time I use a palette, I'm having to use it all the time with Viseart palettes. I would love to be able to use a palette on its own, you know, with a very bright colorful matte like greens or blues. If she would just give us that, honestly, it would be fantastic. But this palette, in the absence of all those colorful mattes, they really did it for me. This shade, that pink shade, even that sweet peach shade, it's absolutely gorgeous. So this palette really came close in my ranking. It's such a beautiful and well put together shade. And oh, this gold here, beautiful. I love it. A lot of people get angry that she puts gold in a lot of her palettes. I don't mind. I don't care, because I get to put gold in my inner corner. You can never go wrong with gold. I mean, you can't have too much of gold, you know, in your inner corner. So it works for me. I am not one of those people that complain about the gold. And let's face it, she loves gold. She started with using gold, so I don't think she's going to stop putting gold in her palette. So you might as well get used to it. Last 2 palettes. Coming in at number 2 for me is the Bronze Seduction palette. This palette should probably have been my number 1. I mean, I love red. These special shades in this palette are absolutely fantastic. They are beautiful. The combination, out of this world. This is such a beautiful palette. And this matte, oh, with that brown matte, Absolutely beautiful. Such a gorgeous palette. It's so perfect for me. This is actually the first Mothership palette I got. When I saw this, I was one of those people that thought I would never ever pay above £50 for a palette. I was like, no, no, no. Is there gold inside? Does it pop out money every morning or something? I was one of those people. But when I saw this palette, when I saw the Bronze Seduction, I was sold. And this was the first palette I tried. Needless to say, once I tried it, that was it. Everything, every idea, every thoughts I had before of not buying a palette, they just went out of the window. Absolutely beautiful. Once you try a formula, especially the Mothership palette, that is it. That is it. This is a gorgeous palette, a beautiful palette, well thought of. It's subtle but not subtle, flashy but not flashy. You can use it in whatever way you want. So if you want to tone it down, you know, you go with the browns. If you wanted to hype it up, you go with that dark extreme color. I believe it's called Extreme Aubergine. Yes, that shade is called Extreme Aubergine, and I believe this is the first time she actually came out with something that was very different from brown. So this just made it made my day, because initially when I saw the browns in the other three palettes and the black, I was like, nah, nah, nah. And because I'd never used a special shade, so I didn't even know what a formula was like. So, but when I saw the Extreme Aubergine in this one and that sweet chocolate, light chocolate brown shade, this palette sold me, and I tried it. Oh my days, honestly, beautiful, well thought of palette. And if I just swatch my special, in fact, I'm going for this one, I'm going to swatch all the four for you so you can see what this palette is all about. The red, that shade is magical, absolutely magical. How beautiful this, and these are swatch dry. I didn't wet my hands or touch my hands to, you know, the wipes before I swatched it, but they are absolutely beautiful, especially that red. Oh, honestly, what more could you want? Such a nice buttery shade. Look at that. Those are swatch dry, and yet, you know, there's no particles, there's no mess. She just knows how to do the palette. The way they stay in the palette, the way the shades stay in the palette, for me, it sells me every time. I mean, look at that. It's compact. This particular shade is actually glitter. It's so glittery. See, it's glitter. It's glitter in a pan that has been set with glue on its own, so it doesn't kind of like fall out or fall apart in the pan. Look at that. It's pure glitter. That's what it is. But it's not messy, it's not all over the place, it's not all over my arm, or when you use it in your eyes, it doesn't fall over. At least if you use a glitter glue and wet it, it's absolutely gorgeous. I don't know how she does those formulas, but they are fantastic. Alright, we are down to just one palette. So ranking in at number one for me, and my favorite Pat McGrath palette, is the Subversive palette. This palette is beautiful, and if you've seen it, you know. This is the Subversive palette. Absolutely beautiful. Is, for me, is the most diverse of our Mothership palettes. It doesn't just rely on the special shades, it pulls beautiful colors all over this palette. It's so beautiful, and this is the only palette out of the first three that she created, I think, that black comes in perfectly for. And the reason is the black, laying down the black before you put down the special shades, oh my days, is a magical outcome. Magical outcome. And these shades, they definitely need that black base. So for me, that black is perfect in this palette, unlike the other first two. Out of all our palettes, this is the only palette where I actually loved an ordinary color more than the special shades, and it's this purple here. So that purple is called Night Creature, and if I just swatch it for you, this is my favorite shade in this palette. Look at it, absolutely beautiful. I don't know if you can see the flecks in it as well. It's such a beautiful shade. I mean, I don't like purple, so it's kind of like a different variation of purple, if you like. So in between purple and pink, absolutely beautiful. This shade is my best shade in this palette. I love it so much. Another color I do like in this palette, even though I don't really like cool tone palette, is this particular one. It's like a gunmetal shade, and if I just show you what that looks like, look at that, how gorgeous is that shade. It's such a unique palette. This palette is honestly so beautiful palette. Let me just, because my hands were wet, let me just stop that. Look at that swipe. Look how beautiful that shade is. It's not something that you find in all palettes or that is a common color. It's such a unique color. I mean, on top of all that, this special shade, all the 4 special shades are heavenly. Honestly, they are such a beautiful shade. I know you're probably seeing blue here, but I'm seeing purple when I look at it. So it's a multi-chrome. It's such a beautiful shade, and I'm going to swatch all of the 4 for you. So I'm going to wet my hands so I can get a perfect swatch. So this is Bleed Amethyst. Beautiful. VR Pink. Gigabyte. Oh, another favorite in this palette. Oh, look how beautiful that green is. I don't even know whether it's a green, is a toss between green and yellow. And finally, the Astral Gold Orchid. Oh, look how beautiful these shades are. This palette, she outdid herself in this palette. I'm looking forward to when she comes out with something similar to this or something better than this. I don't normally do an all shimmer only look, but with this palette I actually did an all shimmer looks using those 2, in fact these 4 special shades, and it came out beautiful. It's the only palette I've ever done an all shimmer look, honestly, without even a black base. It still came out beautiful, and I can't imagine what it would look like with the black base. I'm just gonna try one of these shades with the black base. So I'm gonna put black on my hands and we're gonna swatch one of those shimmers over it. So these are the 4 special shades, and I'm laying down black right there. Actually, I'm going to do two so I can use 2 of the special shades. So I'm going to swatch Gigabyte on the black base. Oh, look how different that is. And I'll also swatch the Bleed Amethyst. So I'm going to do Bleed Amethyst on top. Look how different that is. Can you see the difference between that and when it was swatched without a black base? It takes it to the next level. And finally, I'm going to swatch Extra Ghost Orchid on the remaining part of that black bit. Look at that. The magic. You can literally do anything with this palette. You can use 2 colors together. You can lay 1 color on top of each other. And if I just swatch Astro Ghost Orchid on top of the Bleed Amethyst, which is that one, so see how it transforms the color. Can you see? You have another color just from mixing 2 together. This palette is absolutely beautiful. I mean, look at that on the black base. Can you see how different all those shades are? This palette is well worth it. If you're going to get any palette from McGrath, this is the one that is truly and truly well worth the money. In fact, it's worth more than the cost of. This palette is beautiful. All the colors are magical and the combinations fantastic. You can see why this palette deserves to be #1, as I've demonstrated all the colors for you. You get more than your money's worth with this palette. It's absolutely beautiful, absolutely gorgeous. If you're going to try one McGrath palette, this is the one to go for. Between this and the Bronze Seduction palette, you can't go wrong. They are absolutely beautiful. So this is my #1, my favorite McGrath Mothership palette, this Subversive palette. And so that takes us to the end of this video. I hope you've enjoyed my ranking. Let me know what you think. How does your rating compare to mine? I'm sorry if your favorite palette came last with mine. It's just a personal opinion. I'm of a different skin tone. Our preferences are different. So for me, this is how I like a palette, and that's how they've ranked for me. I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. Please like and share this video, and thanks for watching. And until next time, I'll see you. Bye.